Thanks, Stephanie. You can go upstairs. It's your Sunday to go up, so have a great time. And for the rest of us, let's see, can I get some lights this row behind me? And that'd be great. I feel like I'm in a closet. Well, good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the journey. It's good to see you here. If you are here with us for the first time, I want to say thank you so much. And if you aren't here for the first time, I think you know this about us, but whether you are or aren't, I just want to say wherever you're at on your journey, you're welcome here. Spread the word. I don't care if you drink, smoke, or chew, or date a girl that does, or do, or whatever. You're welcome here. And this is a place that's safe, and we hope that you enjoy it and that you keep coming back, because we believe in people, and we believe that God loves people, and we want to see people connect with God. Well, for the past few weeks, we've been in a series called Fighting for Your Family. If there's anything in this world that's worth fighting for, it's your family. It doesn't matter what kind of family you have. If you have a big one or a small one, whether you have 10 kids or no kids, a spouse or no spouse, traditional family or blended family, it doesn't matter. Family is worth fighting for. There are forces all around us that, whether intentional or not, have the potential to tear apart, rip apart, and destroy families if we allow it to. From outside influences like peers and internet and movies and music and anti-family values, to inner or internal influences like divorce, anger, addiction, self-centeredness, those kinds of things, chaos in the home. And if we don't fight for our families, if we don't fight for them, there are forces around us that will naturally fight against them. It just happens that way. And life is way too short and way too valuable for broken families to settle for broken families and cold hearts and painful memories. We need to fight for better, and we can fight for better. I want to see that happen here. I want to see that happen through here, and as we continue to reach people in this community. Now, if you missed last week's talk, normally you could catch up and listen online, but unfortunately it didn't get recorded, and I apologize for that. I was pretty bummed when I found out, but hey, live is better than not live, right? Yeah, that's why you're here. Okay, so, anyway, over the past 3 weeks, we've focused on the marriage side of family. And today we're going to start looking at the parenting side. And so the title of the talk today is The Great Privilege. The Great Privilege. And we're going to, I'm going to show a video clip that it's funny, it's musical. You'll remember this when you leave this place probably. But it talks about parenting. I think if you are a parent or have been a parent, you can identify with it. So go for it.
Bath time and bedtime at the Crawford house inspired this little ditty. My apologies to Paco Bell for what I'm about to do to his lovely canon in D. Why don't you want to say goodnight? Why is it that you do not go to your bed and sleep tight until the morning light has come and cast its rays upon your eyes, and then you wake to greet the day God has made and rejoice, for you are part of it? Why do you insist upon the crying and the moaning and the whining and the screaming and the tantrums and the yelling and the kicking and the snacking and the biting and the hissies, the one more drink of water and the one more book please daddy, and now I just want you to go to sleep. I don't want to hear a peep from either one. The day is well past done, and I'm about to lose my mind. I'm gonna tear up your behind, so nighty night, and don't let the bed bugs bite. Now it is so quiet and so peaceful in this once chaotic house. We all are sleeping and we're dreaming, and it's quiet as a mouse. But what is that familiar sound tiptoeing nearer, little steps approaching closer? No, it can't be what I'm fearing, and it's not. It's just the cat, and she is purring so contently, and she snuggles at my feet. To be sure, it's quite endearing. My lids relieve my eyes of all the stress that they were feeling, and I turn my head to sleep, but then I feel somebody staring, and then she's staring right at me. Her eyes eyes are glazed with sleep. I nearly wet the sheets upon my bed. Her lips are trembling as she speaks. Now there's color in her cheeks. She looks so frail, my heart begins to swell. Now she lives beside me and she breathes so easily. Her dreams are happy and she sighs a tender sigh so peacefully. She knows her mommy and her daddy and her sissy love her greatly, and we sleep throughout the nighttime, never ever more sedately. And now morning casts its light upon the pillow where her head begins to stir. I try to wake her so her kind and gentle dreams I don't disturb, but as I pull her from her slumber ever slowly, I know in my heart of hearts exactly where this all is going. Then the crying and moaning and the whining and the screaming and the
Daddy, you're so mean, how could you interrupt my dreaming?
the brushing of the hair and then the clothes they hate to wear. I need the check to pay daycare. I can't forget her teddy bear. And then I signed her in at her old school. Off to work I travel to. My mind's a wreck. I keep hearing songs from Shrek. I work all day and then go home. All my stress is mostly gone. My kids I see and I pull them in closely. Then we start to do the homework and the dinner must be started, and gymnastics and piano and the groceries must be carted, and the smallest one is crying, won't you hold me like she's dying, and the oldest one's frustrated with her homework, though she's trying, and dinner's on the table but it's cold because we waited for the children to get back from practicing all their cheerleading. Now the broccoli is so nasty, the macaroni's pasty, and the meat is tough as leather, really the thing is quite tasty. So the crying and the moaning and the screaming and the whining start again, but now the target is asleep, it's homebound dining, and I raise my hands in wonder as I look around the table. How can anyone survive? Is anyone out there enabled? And I think about the laughter when times are not so hectic, and I know that though my stomach ache is slightly not gone peptic, I see their smiling faces as on swings I push them gently. When I hold their little hands, life could not go more contently. So the crying and the moaning and the screaming and the kicking play a very tiny part of all the time my life is ticking, and the good outweighs the bad. I am more happy than I'm sad. For all of this I should be glad. I've had it better than my dad. You bet I have.
All right. Well, hey, can I have some lights? Good video clip, huh? Creative. So someone said this: a person with 6 children is better satisfied than a person with $6 million. And the reason is because a person with $6 million wants more. So, but parenting, whether you're a biological parent or an adoptive parent, it's such a privilege, and it's an honor that God has given to us, that he would entrust us with little kids. It boggles my mind. It really does. And, little lives. It's just absolutely amazing. But that song, I think, so encapsulates what parents go through, isn't it? I mean, it just really does, what we all experience. But parenting is a privilege, and it's so worth it. It is so worth it, even through all the sleepless nights and the sibling fights and the crying and the moaning and the whining and the yelling and the screaming. And, there's nothing better than family and the great privilege that we have to be parents and raising kids. Here's something that the Bible says in the book of Psalms. It says this: children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Children born to a young man are like sharp arrows in a warrior's hands. What about an old man? I don't know. Anyway, but how happy is a man whose quiver is full of them? Children are a gift, and no matter what age they are, if there's any students left in this room, you are a gift. You are good gifts from God, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because you are. But parenting is such a wonderful privilege. It's not easy at all. Lots of parents who have a hard time. We all do have a hard time from time to time. But I believe that every parent or parent-to-be in this room wants to be a good parent. Am I right? Yes. Yeah? Some of you aren't sure. Yes, absolutely, I mean, does anyone here want to be a bad parent? I don't think any dad wants to be, say, gosh, I just hope I suck as a father. Nobody does that. Of course not. But there are some questionable parenting styles. that, we've seen. And I've got a couple of pictures of them up on the screen. This first one is my kids go where I go, parenting. And I tried to convince Wendy to let me do that snow skiing. And she wouldn't let me, and I didn't understand why. I still don't, because I don't fall too often. Anyway, but the next one is my kids go nowhere I go, parenting. So that's a different style. This next one is redneck high chair parenting. This next one is you didn't really think that I'd really do that parenting. Yeah, don't try me anymore, kid. And this last one is the monsters are real type of parenting. But, we all want to do it well. We all want to, we want better for our kids than what we had growing up. Isn't that true? We want that. We want that for our kids. And we want to be people that our kids can look up to and that they can follow after. It's not easy, but it's also not all that difficult either. It just takes some fighting for, but it's very, very, very possible. So I have a question for all the parents and parents-to-be in this room. Don't answer it now, but think about it. What is your main goal as a parent? What's your main goal? What do you see as your God-given assignment in terms of bringing up your kids? Is it to make them happy? Is it to help them be successful in life? Is it to get them to bring you happiness? Is it just to shove some food down their throat and kick them off to school and, and you just can't wait to get them out of the house? Is that your goal, in life or as a parent? What's your goal? Do you even have one? And then what steps are you taking to get there as a parent? And I'd like to make a suggestion, if I could, in regards to a worthy goal. It's definitely my goal. And it's that I would be able to lead my kids into a life-shaping, eternal, loving relationship with Jesus Christ. That's our goal. That's my goal. That Jesus would have their hearts for life and for eternity. And if you're not a Christ follower here, I totally understand that you wouldn't share that goal. Same goals I do. Feel free to filter that. It's all good. But I challenge you to establish your goals as a parent, to see what is it? What is my purpose as a parent? And how do I get there? The way I understand things is that my kids are eternal beings. They're not just kids. They're eternal beings with souls. And I want them to know the eternal God who loves them, because I want to spend eternity with them someday. It's a big, big responsibility, especially when you look at it like that. They're not pets, though sometimes they act that way. They're not. I mean, they're eternal beings that we've been entrusted with, and that's a big responsibility. And so, but I want them to know Christ. The message of Christ is powerful and it's attractive, and I want my kids to be attracted to a loving Savior who gave his life for them. So I want what I do to attract and reflect the love of Jesus to them, so they'd be drawn to him. And if I can help see that happen, I've succeeded. And they will do well in life. And so I invite you, wherever you're at on your spiritual journey, to consider that reality. But regardless of goals, let's take a look at two foundational battles that we fight as parents. And so the first one is, there's a green sheet in your handout if you want to take notes, but it's the battle for a solid family structure. It is a battle today, because it doesn't come automatically. And even more so today than 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But children need stability. And that's that next point. Children need stability. It doesn't matter if they're 2 or 12, 7 or 17. Children need stability. It's inherent in their nature. And in our ever-changing, fast-shifting culture, it won't provide that stability that's needed. Our digital, techie age provides little stability for our kids. Kids won't provide that for each other either. Kids don't provide stability for each other, and not the way that they can behave. At the table, you've got Calissa, Michael bothering Calissa, and Calissa saying, "You do that again, I'll fart in your face." And she says things like that. She did that, and that's not very stable, right? Okay, back, and some of you heard me share this back. In 1989, October 17th, 1989, I had the great joy of experiencing the incredible peaceful sensation of a 7.1 earthquake in San Francisco. And, it caused a section of the Bay Bridge to collapse, and I was living at my parents' house at the time. And some of you have heard me tell this story, but it was holy cow. I was sitting down to do homework. I was going to San Francisco State at the time. And as I sat down in the living room, it was 5:04 p.m. The World Series, Giants versus A's, was just starting. And so I sat down, and I feel this kind of rumble. But, buses go by our house all the time. And it's like, okay, it was probably a bus or a truck or something. But then the rumble, it didn't just kind of go away. It just started kind of shaking more and more, and this deep, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And all of a sudden, the walls just started going, bam, 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 bam. I mean, I watched these, and I'm standing there, I think it's an earthquake, And I didn't even think about jumping under our glass coffee table. That wouldn't work. And so I just stood there watching our walls just do this. And it was, my mom comes running in from her room, and she's like, I think it's an earthquake. I think you're right, And it's just going, and it felt like it was going to go for it. It kept getting stronger, and all of a sudden it just went, bah, 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 and it stopped. And I was like, oh my goodness. I've never felt anything like that before. So we went to turn on the television and change the channels, all fuzz. Everything was just shh, 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 all these channels. I'm thinking, wow, this must have been kind of significant. And then after about 5 minutes, finally we get one of the news channels, and there's lights start, they're swinging from the ceiling, and their hair's all messed. We've just had a major earthquake, and of course it's more dramatic than it should be, but I don't know. But, then they show pictures of the Bay Bridge, and it's like, oh my goodness. And I don't know, I can't remember how long the earth shook that day. It may have been 10 or 15 seconds, maybe longer. But imagine, though, what San Francisco would look like if it were constantly shaking, or if it had a major earthquake every other week. Okay, imagine what that would look like. I've got a couple of pictures on the screen here of just from that one quake. That's down by the marina. It's a 7.1 quake. Let's go to the next one. That kind of moved, and then another one here. There's across the Bay Bridge in Oakland, the Nimitz Freeway. It's sandwiched one level on top of the other. And so you can see the damage from about, 15, 20 seconds. I think there's one more there, or a couple more. But the damage from just 15 or 20 seconds of the earth shaking was tremendous. And so, imagine if San Francisco were always shaking or had something like that happen all the time, it would be a pile of rubble, wouldn't it? I mean, just a pile. You couldn't build there. Nobody in their right mind would try to build there. Kind of like that scene from Empire Strikes Back where they're in the asteroid, and the asteroid starts shaking, and you've got C-3PO. I think it's not entirely stable, And thank you, Professor. Going or whatever he said. But just as you need stable ground to build structures that will last, children need stable families to build their lives upon. Too much shaking tears them down and tears them apart. And the mess is big. And part of God's design for the family is to provide stability for children. From the time they're born until the time they move out on their own. Children are naturally insecure and need a solid foundation through which that they can grow and be nurtured and learn and grow in values and character and establish themselves one day as mature young adults, confident in the direction that they're taking in life. And I understand that this isn't the case for some of us here in this room, but children and teens need to have the security of knowing that mom and dad will be there for them no matter what happens. According to one study, and possibly even several, but this one, the number one fear that kids face, number one fear out of any fears, is divorce. The second fear that they face is a loss of a parent. Those two top all the rest of them. Those two are what? Stability. They speak stability in a family. Those fears exceed all the other ones, the fear of the dark, fear of monsters, fear of ghosts and war and death, and even fear of the doctor, okay, which that was number 3 on my list when I was a kid. But anyway, I couldn't stand the doctor. But there was a time, when I was in grade school, my parents had separated for about 6 months because their marriage was not doing well. We moved in with my grandparents for that season, and I don't know how my brother responded, but I know that my grades dropped, and I had a period of not just getting into fights, but picking fights. And that's not me. That's not, the way I was raised or the way I normally acted, but I would go around actually looking for them and picking them, and I was just acting out the instability that was going on in my life. But it brings me to the next point. The next point is both parents are needed. Okay, and I understand that being a single parent is a common thing. To the single parents here, you're well aware of your child's need for another parent. And I'm sure there are times when you feel helpless or responsible or frustrated because parenting can be that much more difficult when you're alone, when you don't have anyone else to help. But the point about this point is to say that, or isn't to say that you need to go and find another spouse this week, okay? Don't do that. Nor is it in any way to minimize your efforts as a parent or cause you to feel like giving up or make you feel guilty. It's not about that. You can still, with God's help, create a good measure of stability for your child or children. God gives special power and grace and favor to single parents. In Psalm 68:5, God has promised that he is a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows. Okay, and so part of the reason that this point is here is because it's true and because there are family and parenting philosophies today that try to push the idea that kids don't need both parents. And I think we've heard those kinds of philosophies and teachings out there as well. They usually tend to write off the importance of having a dad around, and that's simply not true. The family structure that God designed requires the presence of both mom and dad. That's why divorce can be so devastating to children. Mom and dad together are anchors for their young lives. Constant, secure. When one or both leave in anger, it's worse than a major earthquake because the ground doesn't stop shaking. It just keeps on going for a long time in their lives. But not only are both needed, it's also essential that your marriage is healthy and strong and in order. The stronger the marriage, the more stability there is for the kids. And kids can tell. They know when things aren't in order. They know when things are shaking. And they feel that fear building up. Kind of like when you sense, or when an animal senses an earthquake coming. But another reason why both parents are needed is that children need both a mom and a dad. Well, didn't you just say that, Mike? Well, I'm saying it differently in that they need a male and a female figure in their lives. Okay, John Eldridge, the author of Wild at Heart, he said this: a mother cannot bestow masculinity upon her son, and neither can a father bestow femininity upon his daughter. I can't bestow masculinity upon my daughters because it's simply not, what did I say? I can't bestow femininity. I'm glad I stopped myself right there. Woo! I can't bestow femininity on my daughters because it's not in me, okay? It's just not. Wow, saved myself right there. Whew. But I can't. I'm not going to naturally sit down with my girls for tea time while we paint nails, wear heels, and watch a chick flick. That's not going to happen, okay? I can't bestow what I don't have within. Wendy can't bestow masculinity upon Michael. Okay, I got that one right. Instead of encouraging his boyness, she has a natural tendency to discourage. Not that she does it all the time. She's done a great job, but her natural tendency is to discourage it. Get down from there. You're too high. Don't pick up that snake. Slow down. Don't run. Be careful. Take that snail out of your mouth, I might say the same thing about the snail, okay? But, because he's done that. When he was a little kid, he was just little. He loved sucking on the big snails. He'd just pull them out of the garden and walk around. And so anyway, but I got a picture of that kind of illustrates, here's what the father sees, the child sees, and here's what the mother sees, okay? So I think that's just a fantastic illustration of that point. But, only a mom can bestow. By the way, I did that with Caitlin when she was little one day, and she was having fun. We're down in Southern California. I'm throwing it up, and I'm thinking, how high can I get her? And I just, throw up. And she's in the air. It changed from a smile to, one of those. And I knew that was the last time I would be able to throw her up because she would not let me. I caught her. She was, down, Daddy, down, so anyway. But Wendy wasn't there. She didn't stop me. But, only a mom can bestow femininity, and only a dad can bestow masculinity. Girls need femininity bestowed, and boys need masculinity bestowed. Yet there are also needs, for example, that a son has that only his mother can meet. And there are needs that a daughter has that only her father can meet. For example, a girl needs to know that her father delights in her and thinks that she's a beautiful princess that's worth pursuing. She can't get that from mom. She needs to get that from dad. And oftentimes girls who receive little or no affection from their dad will end up looking for that affection in other boys, her age or older, okay? Their age and older. And they'll go around looking for that affection because they don't get it from dad. Whereas, for example, a girl who receives more affection from her dad is less likely to walk the road of promiscuity than the other. But both parents are needed. However, in recognizing the need for a father and mother figure that is presently absent, it may serve both to help you understand what's going on with your child, and maybe, if you're a single parent, spur you to maybe seek out a needed role model through another family or within the church or close friend. And I want to encourage those of us who are part of this church to be a support to single parent families. Be a support as much as you can. Look for them. Look for that where you can come in and see what you can do. But if you are a single parent, be encouraged, because God knows your need and the needs of your child. He's on your side, and he wants to help you, and he will help you. And he'll give you wisdom. Another aspect of a solid family structure is that loving authority must be established. Loving authority must be established. And let me clarify, not the authority of the child, the parent, okay? Some kids will try to be in charge and take authority over the parent in as many areas of life as possible. Some parents let them. Calissa is one of those kids who would be happy to relieve me of my authority in the home and take it for herself. She would be happy. Am I right? She absolutely. But here's a passage in the Bible. It says this. Paul said, "Children, obey your parents." It doesn't say, "Oh, parents, obey your children," right? "In the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth." In the Bible, God set up a plan of order within the family. Without order, there's chaos. Violate that order, and things don't work right. Part of that order includes love and authority that must be established in the home. God calls all people, every one of us in this room, to live under authority. That includes the family, the church, the workplace, the government. As parents, we represent God's authority. And this is really difficult today because we live in a very anti-authority culture, a culture that no longer responds to authority as it once did 50 years ago. And authority, for the most part, is distrusted because it has been terribly abused, and we've all seen it. We've all experienced it. And so it's understandable that authority is like, oh, I don't like to hear that word. Get that? Man, that's like a cuss word, right? It's still needed, and we still need it, and our kids still need it. And in the home, parents must be the established authority, not the other way around. Though children often resist the authority of parents, they actually need both need it and they want it. And it brings security and it shows love. Now I'm not talking about being an authoritarian. I'm not talking about parenting Gestapo style, right? Or throwing them in a little dog cage like whatever up there, okay? We aren't to be tyrants. We're called to be a loving authority, one like Jesus who exercises authority, but he also came to be a servant. Here's a passage in Ephesians. It says, "And now a word to you fathers, don't make your children angry by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction approved by the Lord." Not just kind of whatever you come up with and heavy-handed. The purpose of our authority isn't to be mean or self-centered or hold our kids under our power and control their lives, but rather to use our strength and authority to serve and empower them to be self-controlled people who live freely under the authority of God. That's what we're called to do. And Jesus is our example of a ruler who's also a servant, and a servant who also rules. And parents, we need to lead and set the boundaries and make the final decisions in our home. To forfeit that to our kids is to dismantle the family structure that God has set up and wants for us, and it sets us up for failure. At the same time, our authority has to be carried out with love. We've got to do it with love. Children rarely run from a home where their needs are truly met. I'm not talking about, meeting all their needs like the latest toys and video games and, I'm talking about the needs of their heart, the deep needs of their soul. Although some kids might try to convince you that the latest iPod or Xbox is the deep need of their soul, but that you have to use some discernment there. But anyway, who would want to walk out on a relationship where you feel loved and respected? We just don't. We like relationships like that. Who would want to run away from parents who know and understand you enough to lead you? Most children generally don't resist authority. Most children generally don't resist authority that is truly kind and selfless. Here's what Paul said. He said, "For I want to use the authority that the Lord has given me to build you up, not to tear you down." That's the purpose for authority, is to build people up. But loving authority has to be established. Next, tender relationship must be constant. Tender relationship. And this is directly related to loving authority. You're the parent in charge, okay? But your relationship with your child is tender constantly. It's got to be. We have to invest ourselves in open, honest, loving communication with our kids, no matter what age they are, where trust is established, where there's a love connection. Not just that the child knows you love them, but where the child feels that they're being loved unconditionally, where the child loves their relationship with you. That's important. And let me tell you, you don't have to give them everything that they want to make that happen. Just give them you. Here's a formula that I learned a long time ago that is absolutely true. Rules without relationship equals rebellion. Rules without relationship equals rebellion. And if we as parents are to be successful in parenting, we must have the hearts of our kids. Which brings us to the next point. And this is what parenting comes down to. The fight to capture the hearts of our kids. Okay? Fight to capture your child's heart. Fight to win your child's heart. Fight to have your child's heart. Fight to grab hold of your child's heart. That's what we need to do. The heart determines behavior. I think we all know this. It's the next point. It determines behavior. How often do we as parents get all worked up? Our veins are bulging our necks and foreheads, over our child's outward behavior, right? A lot of times we've done that. We look like that Urukai picture there, the monster holding the kid. But usually it's because whatever they do causes us inconvenience or grief or disrupts our peace. And so we try to correct their outward behavior. And we forget about being concerned with what's really going on in their heart, no matter what the age. You see, if we get our kids to change their outward behavior, apart from addressing what's going on in their hearts, or leading them to a change of heart because we've failed to tend their heart, we will have made things worse for them in the long run. We're teaching them to bury stuff. We're teaching them to just conform outwardly and not deal with what's going on inside. Following on that? We're making a big mistake when we do that. The Bible reveals the heart is a command center for our lives. A person's life and actions and behavior mirrors what's in the heart. Proverbs says this, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. It's where life comes out of. Okay, it's the command center. The heart is like a well from which everything flows. Here's what Jesus said, from within, out of a person's heart comes evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, eagerness for lustful pleasure, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. In fact, I had a conversation with someone this week who was blaming religious rules on someone that this person knows on their immoral decisions. Well, if there weren't all these religious rules, that wouldn't have happened. Okay? That immorality wouldn't have happened. And I said, that's baloney. It doesn't matter what religious rules there are. It starts in the heart. You could have those religious rules or not. What's in there is going to come out. Does that make sense? Okay, it's like, okay, bear with me. It's not a political thing, but it's like, I'll use a different situation. It's like blaming the car for a drunk driver hitting a person. Does that make sense? Okay? It's not the car's fault. It's the person's fault. So, anyway, Jesus said all this stuff comes out of the heart. He also said the good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And the evil man brings evil things out of the evil things stored up in his heart. For out of the overflow of his heart, the mouth speaks. And so just like us, what our children say and do is a direct reflection of what's in their hearts, the condition of their hearts. And that's why we as parents have to be concerned about their hearts. Our children's needs go deeper than their outward behavior. And so we have to seek and find out what's going on inside them and help them see it too. And the next point is pursue, know, and lead your child's heart. Gently lead your child's heart. And this takes time. It's an investment of self. It takes thought and courage and engaging your heart with your child, which means that we have to fight things that take up that time. We have to fight the demands of life and the stress and things that come at us and the distractions and whatever it is that might rob us of that time to have with our kids. But it's not until we really reach our kids' hearts that we've really reached them. And this takes wisdom and time and prayer on the part of both parents. And one of the things that's difficult about this, is recognizing those moments when, like a rosebud that suddenly opens up to the sunshine, your child's heart opens up to you and lets you in. And it's moments here and there and throughout a kid's life that add up to something great in your relationship with them. You see, I don't believe, and you've heard me say this before, I don't believe that we should just expect teens to rebel. I think that's a lie that our culture has bought into. I think it's a cop-out that our culture has bought into as well. And I think most teens don't want to rebel. They would rather have a good relationship with their parents because their parents have pursued and captured their hearts. And it is possible, but it takes responsibility and personal conviction. Each child is so different, and so pursuing their hearts will look differently for each one. What works for one kid may not work for another kid because they're so different. And we have to be attentive and ready because they're all amazingly different. By the time Calissa, our third child, was born, I was just amazed as I gazed at her tiny little form. She was ours. She was part of our family. She had lots of resemblances to Caitlin and Michael, but yet she was still so different. There's no clones in our family, all right? But it was so cool. I remember when she was born, it was so cool. I just studied her. I just looked at her. I was just like, wow, this is just amazing. just looking at my little girl and then looking over at Michael and comparing her with Michael and with Caitlin and so forth, and now Brielle. But they're all wired so differently, yet each heart is so tender and so real. Caitlin, you were supposed to be upstairs when I was talking about you, but sorry. But anyway, but Caitlin is gentle, is graceful, gifted, and loving. Yet there's a quiet strength that guides and moves her. She responds to genuineness and kindness and peace, but she closes up when there's chaos and drama and any instance that she doesn't feel safe. She's an amazing gift. Sorry, I guess I may owe you $10 on that one. But Michael, well, he's all boy, okay, and then some. All right? He loves danger and adventure and dirt. And, at youth group a couple of weeks ago, Stephanie asked all the teens, if you knew you had one day left to live, how would you live that day differently? And Michael's like, yeah, shut up. And she goes, Michael, she goes, I wouldn't take a shower. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my son. He's all boy, When he was younger, girls would pick flowers, and he'd pick his nose and then snack on it, okay, on what he just picked. And Optimus football, okay, he's always been one of the smallest kids on the team, but no fear whatsoever. He would, the bigger the guys, didn't matter. He hit him harder, and he'd take him down, and then someone would tackle him, and he'd lay there with a big old grin across his face, and the coach was like, he's the only kid that we know that actually enjoys being tackled, he's got this big old smile. But, in spite of being all boy, that smile reveals his tender, joyful heart, a heart, that cares and thrives when it's cared for and loved. Calissa, she's a leader. We've talked about this in our house, she's our warrior princess, okay? Just like on Lord of the Rings, she's got this, she loves to primp and dress up all girly, but she will cut your head off if you cross her wrong, she will. She's cute, but carries a big stick. There's a neighborhood boy that we've lived nearby in the neighborhood for the last 3.5 years, and he plays football. He's 2 years older than Calissa, and she will tackle him and pin him to the ground and hold him there. And we've heard him almost like get off me, get off me, get off me, almost to the point of crying. And I'm thinking, whoa, a couple weeks ago when we had the participating members meeting here, Angelina and Amanda and a bunch of them were watching the kids. And so Calissa, she had brought some of her baby bunnies. And so there she is. She's sharing her baby bunnies. And she did this. She had all of them sit in a circle. And she's standing in the middle of the circle. And she's handing them out. And she says, okay, pass. Now pass it. Okay, you're holding on, pass it, and then she's just giving them all the instructions, pass it, and then someone says, well, what's their name? Oh, well, we don't name them because, we don't know if we're going to keep them or sell them to Zamzos. And someone says, well, tell her what's that name is. We don't name them, she's just this, leader of a person. And, well, can I buy one? They're $25, and you will need a cage, and you will need a feeder, and you will need, and she's just going down the list. And anyway, so she's a sergeant, but she has the sweetest, tender heart that wants to be loved and led. Wouldn't you agree? Absolutely. Brielle, she's our artist. She loves to color and paint and draw and create. She's always dancing and singing. Her favorite video game is Just Dance 3 on the Wii, and she will spend hours in front of that. She has a strong sense of justice. Her favorite line is, it's not fair, and she has a little fair, okay, the way she says it, and they're like, whose kid are you? But anyway, so she's inquisitive. She just lost her first tooth, so she put it under her pillow, and Wendy gave her a buck in the middle of the night, and she was really happy about that. The next night, she put a little note under her pillow. To the tooth fairy, why do you need teeth? Inquisitive. And she also put, I want to be a tooth fairy. So she wants to be a tooth fairy, and Michael wants to shoot tooth fairies. But, anyway, but don't tell Brielle that I told you about that note, because she doesn't know that we have the letter, okay? So anyway, shh. Okay, so, yes, I'm talking behind her back. But, they're also incredibly different. And because of that, Wendy and I need to pursue them differently. Pursue their hearts and know their hearts. Capture their hearts, romance their hearts, lead their hearts. And while they all need the same thing, they all need to be loved and built up and encouraged and protected and valued. They need all that, but they also need their hearts to be pursued. And the approach to each child is different. It's different. We're not going to get it perfect. We fall short. We fall so short. I can't even begin to tell you. But the positive thing is that kids don't expect perfection from their parents. But they do want to know that you care about what's going on inside them and that you unconditionally love them. They want their hearts captured by us. But they are quick to forgive, and I'm so glad about that. And if you're a parent here, you understand that thankfulness, that they are quick to forgive. The lead singer for Mercy Me, he was talking about boys, and he goes, it's so cool. He goes, you do or say something wrong, and they're over it in like 3 seconds. He goes, boys are cool. They're like one notch up above pets, He said, you give them food, and they're happy. Not so with girls, though. It's a little tougher with girls. But, obviously, years of wounding and neglecting your kid will cause a child's heart to close up. So it's not a free ride. But the ultimate goal here, last point, ultimate goal, is that Jesus would have your child's heart. That's the ultimate goal. I want to see my descendants walking with and serving Jesus. I want to see them in heaven and spend eternity with them there. A major part of shepherding our kids and their hearts is leading them to a loving relationship with the great shepherd, Jesus himself. He alone is the healer of hearts, and he is the greatest difference maker in the lives of our kids, and in him alone is salvation. This is the absolute best thing a parent can do for their child. We have them for only a short period of time, and they're gone, and then our influence in their lives drastically diminishes from that point on. There's still some there, but it does diminish. And if we as parents can lead them to truly trust Jesus Christ with their hearts and lives before they leave the house and before they have trusted something or someone else with their heart, if we can do that, then we've succeeded, at least at the first stage of parenting. But we can't, nor should we try to force our children to embrace Jesus as their Savior and Lord. But if we have their hearts, we have a much more chance to lead them there and to lead them to make that decision for themselves. That they would recognize and embrace the wonders and beauty and unconditional love of God for them because of how we as parents led them. And that's coolness. It's the greatest privilege, and it's worth fighting for. So the challenge this morning, as we close, is put your house in order. Evaluate your family structure. How stable is it? How strong spiritually is it? If you're married, how strong is your marriage? If you're single, in what ways are you relying on God's grace and wisdom to provide what might be lacking in your kid's life? In your situation, in many situations, it is best. In a lot of situations, it is best because of excessive addictions or uncontrolled anger or abuse. Sometimes it is best when one parent is removed from the home. But the child will need an extra measure of stability and will need that role filled in some way by another person, another role model. But how's your family structure? How's the authority set up in your home? Determine before God to make whatever changes are necessary and pursue your child's heart. Pursue it. Romance their hearts. Know their hearts. Capture their hearts. Love their hearts. Grab hold of them. Keep their hearts. No matter what it takes, get involved. Tear down whatever walls might be there. Do whatever you can to find out their inner needs and fill them up. Let them know that they're loved unconditionally. And it's not about whether or not they feel happy, but whether or not they feel loved and connected to you. and make sure that your kids know that they have your heart too. Final passage in the Bible. Children are a gift from the Lord. They're a reward from him. So let's make the most of this great privilege that we've been given, and let's stand. Let's pray.